On your birthday, do you enjoy decorations on your cake or do you prefer it topped with ice cream? Both cake decorations and ice cream are among the many products that commonly contain substances from seaweed, which is a type of plant like protist. Just like animal like protists were once classified as animals, it is not surprising that many plant like protists used to be classified as plants. Although many plant like protists look like plants, they are different in many ways. Unlike plants, plant like protists do not have roots, stems, leaves, specialized tissues, or the same reproductive structures that plants have. All plants are multicellular, while plant like protists may be single celled or multicellular. Many single celled plant like protists are free living aquatic organisms that, together with photosynthetic bacteria, are known as phytoplankton. Phytoplankton form the base of the aquatic food chain and provide about half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Several pieces of single-celled plant-like protists, such as Volvox, which is pictured on the screen here, live in colonies. Multicellular plant-like protists include the seaweeds or kelps. Some species eat other organisms, but most plant-like protists have chloroplasts and can produce their own food through photosynthesis. Photosynthetic plant-like protists are informally called algae. In the distant past, single-celled organisms combined to become multicellular. It is likely that multicellular algae arose from colonies of algae, such as Volvox. Members of the order Volvocalis include three kinds of forms: single-celled forms, multicellular forms with every cell acting independently, and multicellular forms in which the cells are specialized. In the evolution from single-celled to multicellular algae, some individual cells in colonies were probably very efficient at certain tasks, such as digesting food or producing gametes. These cells and their offspring would have become more specialized over time and eventually may have become dependent on each other. Over generations, colonies could have led to multicellular organisms. Plant-like protists are found in most habitats on Earth. Most are aquatic organisms that live in freshwater and marine ecosystems. Some species live in deserts, while others live in the tundra. Despite their great diversity, all plant-like protists use some form of chlorophyll for photosynthesis. Also, most plant-like protists have algae at some point in their life cycle. Although their classification will likely change, the plant-like protists are placed into various supergroups based on their photosynthetic pigments and cell wall structure. The euglenoids are a large group of single-celled organisms that swim with the aid of one or two flagella. Although most of these species are found in fresh water, some live in ocean environments. Members of this group are both animal-like and plant-like. Like animals, these protists can move around easily. Euglenoids have a pellicle, which is a flexible, coat-like covering on their cell surface. The pellicle allows the cell to change shape. In some species, the pellicle helps the organism to creep across solid surfaces using a type of movement that resembles the inching movement of worms. Although some colorless species of euglenoids eat other organisms, most make their own food through photosynthesis. Plant-like photosynthetic euglenoids are green, such as the euglena shown on the screen now. Their bright green color comes from two different chlorophyll pigments called chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. The dinoflagellates are single-celled. About 90% of dinoflagellates are marine plankton. Plankton are often microscopic organisms that live suspended in the water. Some dinoflagellates are freshwater species, and a few have even been found in the snow. About half of all marine dinoflagellates photosynthesize. Dinoflagellates have two flagella. One flagellum extends from the rear of the cell and propels it forward. The other is a ribbon-like strand that circles the cell in a groove along its body. This flagellum allows the cell to turn over and change direction. The combination of the two flagella cause this protist to turn in a spiral as it moves forward. Some species also have a covering of stiff plates that form a protective armor. Some dinoflagellates, such as Noctiluca, are bioluminescent. That is, they can produce light through internal chemical reactions. The name Noctiluca, means night light. If you have ever visited the ocean at night, you may have seen these blue glowing organisms along the surface of the water. They give off light when they are disturbed. The light may act as an alarm to help them avoid being eaten. Certain other photosynthetic dinoflagellates help build coral reefs through their symbiotic partnership with corals. These dinoflagellates live in the inner tissues of the corals. In return for shelter from the corals, the dinoflagellates provide the corals with nutrients in tropical waters that are usually nutrient poor. Some species of dinoflagellates produce toxins. A large population of these dinoflagellates can create what is known as a red tide. And it's called a red tide due to the reddish color produced by a high density of these species. Red tides, like the one shown on the screen here, occur when changes in ocean currents bring up nutrients from far below the ocean surface. The higher nutrient levels produce a rapid increase, or bloom, in the dinoflagellate population. A toxic bloom in the water can kill large numbers of fish. The toxins can also build up in the tissues of shellfish, which can then be dangerous to humans who eat the contaminated seafood. Most diatoms are easy to recognize when viewed through a microscope. These tiny single-celled algae are covered with delicately patterned glass-like shells. The shells of diatoms serve almost as an external skeleton, helping the cell to hold a rigid shape. Diatom shells, such as the one shown on the screen here, are made of silica, and silica is the same brittle substance that is used to make glass. The silica shell is divided into two parts that overlap with each other, like the lid of a box. Like other autotrophs, all diatoms release oxygen into the environment. In fact, diatoms could be considered the world champions of photosynthesis. They play a critical role in the uptake of carbon dioxide from Earth, or on Earth, and produce about half of the oxygen that we breathe. Diatoms may be freshwater or marine. Many species are phytoplankton. Others live clinging to rocks, plants, soils, and even animals. Diatoms have even been found growing on crustaceans, turtles, and even whales. Because of their glassy, mineralized shells, diatoms have been well preserved in the fossil record. Some fossil records consist almost entirely of diatoms. These diatom skeletons have many industrial uses, such as an ingredient in scrubbing products because of their rough texture. Multicellular algae are classified by their pigment. Green algae may be found in water or on land, although most species are aquatic. Recall that Algae are not considered plants because they do not have roots, stems, or leaves. Like plants, however, green algae are multicellular and contain the photosynthetic pigments chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Both plants and green algae also have accessory pigments called carotenoids. Accessory pigments capture light energy and transfer it to chlorophyll during photosynthesis. Both plants and green algae also have cell walls made of cellulose and store food within their cells as starch. These similarities are the reason that current taxonomy places green algae and plants in the same clade. Brown algae include the giant kelp, like the giant kelp that's pictured on the screen here, which form thick underwater forests. Brown algae are multicellular and can grow to be extremely large. Some giant kelp can grow up to 100 meters high, which is about 330 feet. Most brown algae live in marine environments. Brown algae are photosynthetic, but have a different form of chlorophyll, chlorophyll C. Brown algae share this trait with the diatoms. This observation is why brown algae and diatoms are classified together within the same supergroup. Most red algae are found in the ocean, though a few live in freshwater habitats. Red algae use chlorophyll A for photosynthesis, but they get their color from the pigment that is called physoerythrin. Red algae can grow at deeper depths than other algae because the red pigments allow red algae to absorb the blue light that reaches the deepest into the ocean. Some species secrete calcium carbonate, forming thick crusts that look like corals and provide habitats for tiny invertebrates. Red algae provide many products for the food industry. Many plant-like protists can reproduce both sexually and asexually. Most protists can undergo both sexual and asexual reproduction. All algae can reproduce asexually. Multicellular algae can fragment, and each piece is capable of forming a new body. When a single-celled algae, such as the green algae that is pictured on the screen here, reproduces asexually, its life cycle is a bit more complex. The dominant phase of the life cycle for this species is haploid. Before reproducing asexually, the haploid parent alga absorbs its flagella and then divides by mitosis. This division may occur 2 or more times, producing up to 8 cells. The daughter cells develop flagella and cell walls. These daughter cells, which are called zoospores, leave the parent cell, disperse, and grow. The zoospores can grow into mature haploid cells. But sexual reproduction occurs in algae as well. Some species alternate generations so that the offspring from sexual reproduction reproduce asexually, and the next generation then reproduces sexually. In other species, asexual reproduction occurs for several generations until conditions change. For certain single-celled algae, sexual reproduction is triggered by stress, such as lack of moisture or food. As is shown on the screen here, it begins with cells dividing by mitosis to produce one of 2 types of gametes. Because the gametes look identical in most species, they are usually identified as different mating types, labeled plus and minus. When the gametes come together, they join and form a diploid zygote. The zygote may develop into a zygospore by making a thick wall that can protect it during unfavorable conditions. When favorable conditions return, meiosis occurs, producing 4 haploid cells.